Hey, I'm about to watch American Fiction, so I thought I would just note down some thoughts on Erasure whoop, before I started, and of course it's decided to start itself up again. Um, which is with Erasure. Erasure is definitely it's kind of an experimental, not experimental. It just doesn't use the usual narrative, blah blah blah. I mean, experimental is would be like it's super highly fragmented or just majorly disruptive of the plot. It's using actually fairly straightforward plot of and fairly straightforward narrative techniques to tell its story. What is the story of Thelonious Ellis, nicknamed Monk? So we've got Ellison. Where so you've got Ralph Ellison, you've got Thelonious Monk in there. Kind of a symbol of sort of blackness that isn't the kind of the cliched kind of depiction. It's black, actual black artists, and he's playing a novelist, a black writer who is, I think he would very much say, is a writer, and has kind of rejected, like, I don't really have anything big to say about being black. It's like what I can talk about is my own interests, my own personal expression of myself, and he's gotten penalized for that. um a part of that is maybe because he is so intellectual that he's taken himself out of the people who actually read any more fiction. Only a small percentage of that. I think someone talked about, like, experimental fiction. Great. You're going from the small percentage of people who actually read to the smaller, even smaller percentage of that number of people who will actually read more experimental ish um, lit fiction. This Erasure itself is fairly mainstream. It's nothing that's too taxing that way. It goes a lot into what it goes. It makes a point of going into a lot of, like, what Monk's life is, which is it's kind of sad and lonely. He is somebody who is very much he he there is some brief mention of him being a teacher at the beginning of the story, but we never see him in the classroom. It's definitely, he is much more a writer. But as a writer, you've got to make a living, so his living is as a teacher, but we don't really hear very much about that. I mention that because I just watched the very beginning of American Fiction, and what the movie that gets made of, and that seems to be a little bit more of a starting point that they highlight there. Um, so he goes back to his family. His mother is got what looks like some kind of dementia, something like that, where she's basically slowly forgetting things. Novel's named is called Erasure, so there's that kind of erasure going on there. His sister is a doctor at an abortion clinic, which you could actually, I guess, you could talk about that being some sort of, I don't know if you call that erasure, but, like, you're helping women to make a choice in the matter, and it's sort of a, I guess you could say it's a negative choice, not a negative choice in the sense of it's a subtractive choice versus an additionative choice. I'm not sure how I want to put that, but, and I know, and like in the novel, that doesn't end well for that character. That character then gets erased in a different way. Um, he's got a brother who is gay. Had been married. This came out, got divorced from his family, lost his mother, his children, lost his career, and there's a lot of ways he's getting subtracted as he's trying to live maybe a more authentic life for himself. The brother, Monk, doesn't particularly isn't like wrapping himself. Monk is a grumpy, cantankerous character who isn't particularly kind of like, oh, my poor brother. Is like, no, he kind of still holds what's probably, you get the sense of, like, a black community's more negative thoughts towards gay and lesbian people. Perhaps that might be just white liberal asshole me projecting on that. Um, and he gets very offended when he sees examples of black writing that are super successful, and it's Weeze lives in the ghetto, which he finds is just can caters to like just the worst racial stereotypes of modern black people. And if you go by like Wikipedia and stuff like that, is probably got is fairly kind of similar to Sapphire's book Push. Um, you know, and yeah, and at a certain point, he desperately needs money, and he's also sort of really pissed off at all this kind of stuff. So he writes his own under a pseudonym. What? Well, he'll submit it as a pseudonym. His own thing, which is my pathology, is what he calls it. And he says, like, tells his agent, submit it anonymously, straight, like it's a satire of all the worst stuff in the world, but just submit it straight, and if people can't get it, well, fuck them. And people don't get it. People fucking love the novel. It caters to all the most negative things. And what I know from Wikipedia, actually having gone and then read the Wikipedia descriptive page of Native Son by Richard Wright, that this is a pretty much a plot. The plot of this and of My Pathology and Native Son, an actual novel of the black experience written by a white man, I believe in that case, is that it's basically, this is bullshit, is supposed to be authentic black experience, and it's most definitely not. Now, it of course becomes a humongous success, and it basically overshadows Monk's actual thing, and his alternate character looms more and more. Monk is on a see, I'm summarizing the plot. Um, but it goes from there. Basically, it looms larger and larger. It takes over Monk's life. Monk gets squished smaller and smaller in aspect. And there's I take the end of the book is that Monk has a heart attack or something and dies, and he's taken over by he's swamped by this cartoon, this bullshit becomes the most powerful part of his life. The thing that's going to last him, that's going to erase Thelonious Ellis, Thelonious Monk Ellison, and you know that's going to be that. You Lots of good examples of how this kind of racial character um, cliches is getting gets used by white liberal for kind of propping up our own feelings about black people. Um, it's you know it's it's it has clips between the things of artists, fictionalized accounts of like artists. There's one with it's Rothenberg and de Kooning having a conversation. Rothenberg's like, I want to erase one of your pictures, and it's like, yes, this is what he did. Rothenberg did, and it's this example of erasure art where you, instead of you're building something, you erase stuff. And that was maybe a comment on the kind of ultra masculine, hyper masculine white American male stuff. And Rothenberg was like, no, we're just going to erase all that. We're going to erase it. And that is my statement of art. And so that is erasure. Um, as a book, it's kind of odd because you have the two parts of Monk's life, the actual Monk's life sitting up against this, which you could take as fairly straight, up against all this kind of satire or criticism of like me writing a ghetto novel. It becomes more popular than my actual writings. So that's and the just taking down the just like the concept of what's and race and what's authenticity, especially what's authentic, being being street, being filling um going into this kind of caricature of a black man of done prison time, hypersexual, hyper masculine. That is seen as authentic versus Monk, who is an intellectual who isn't any of these things. Uh, I don't know if it actually works as a novel. Um, it's interesting as a novel, but it felt like those parts seemed a little jumbled. Now, a part of this is when I listened to it on audiobook, and I skipped the whole part where we have the whole of the novel undigested in the middle of this. The whole My Pathology novel is in the middle of this, which really kind of brings everything to a crashing halt. We get the entire novel, and then we're out the other side, so we know what we're dealing with. I mean, there's a sense of like, okay, yeah, boy, Everett really could write a ghetto novel if he wanted to. But then you get back to Ellis, and it's almost like Ellison is almost a caricature of an intellectual in the novel. Like, how authentic is this self in the novel too? It's like him being so intellectual seems like almost like it's the other side of a caricature, which kind of undermines a lot of the family. And it's not like drama; it's very understated. It's a very different part of the book. Yeah, so that's where I'm at with it. I'm kind of mixed on Erasure, or it's like it's fine. You know, I think it has some very good points. I think that it gives this the ghetto novel in the middle of it is both like kind of impressive. You almost start getting into that ghetto novel as you go along, which is like it's kind of fucked up in itself. There's other examples of texts within the book, whether it's the father's letter to his mistress, whether it is the speech that Ellis gives at a literary con thing, which just goes completely over my head. But I think it's supposed to. But you get at the end, it's just like this is a big fuck you to all the kind of theorists. Um, Seems to be kind of scorn on that way. Um, Ellison, I mean, I think you got to go with like Ralph Ellison, like the Invisible Man, and it's like how is he invisibilizing himself? Like there's a lot of different literary traditions going along in here, which I am vaguely aware of. Like there's a lot of stuff like the push, like writing the ghetto novels. Like, oh, I have a vague idea, but then it's like, oh, we're talking about this kind of novel, which I haven't read. Native Son, which I think I bought a copy of a long time ago. I never bothered to read it. Um, and it's definitely commenting on that. I think you probably have to talk about uh, Ralph Ellison's The Invisible Man with this black character in the end being in a basement somewhere, trying to kind of build themselves like an actual independent identity from the whole crushing weight of overarching culture. Um, yeah, that's what I've got so far. So 2 hours of now of American fiction, and we'll see. It's already started off slightly different of him being in a classroom and teaching a Flannery Connor novel that is the artificial N, and him refusing to take down the N word on the chalkboard, and that offending a white female, pink haired student who he kind of yells at, and then thus he has to go on leave, which isn't how Erasure starts off. There's no kind of that politics, at least that him not being getting in that much trouble at the beginning. But we've really started out hard with, yeah, this is something we should talk about. We're not going to candy coat it. there. So yeah, that's where it starts. All right, more videos later.